So in today's video, I'm going to be running my Woodmizer LX25 sawmill, and I'm going to be milling some black walnut rounds that I've been waiting to mill. So why don't we get to it? And there's 1, 2, 3, 4 here. There's one more over there that I just moved with the tractor. And I'm just going to pick out one of these right here and mill it. But you can see right here, this is a pretty nice piece for just an offcut. So there's 2 things that I was thinking about doing here. One of them would be making some circular end tables. And I think this piece is big enough to get a few cookies off of. But if I haven't said it already, I hate cookies. And then another option would be to mill this one right here, and just take a look at this. This just looks phenomenal, this little pattern right here. So first things first, I think these are just too valuable to be sitting on the ground here. So I'm gonna get these off the ground, and then I'm gonna pick one, put it on the mill, and we're gonna do something. So as I was moving these logs, I decided this was the piece that I would ideally like to mill. So my mill can do 23.5 inches wide, and you can see that it'll bring us up to here. I don't really want to cut this down even further. All right, well, I think I like this one just a little too much to cut it and to trim it down to fit the mill. So what I think I'm gonna do is go ahead and swap it for the other one that's a little bit more round and use that one instead. I'm gonna wait until I have more time to use my Alaska mill on this one. All right, so on this side, you can see we're at 23.5 basically. This is almost the exact width of what the mill can do, so that's great. And then up here, almost the same thing. So this will almost perfectly fit as is. However, the other side's a little different. This side has a 45-degree angle cut right down in here, about 27 inches long over here. Now on this side, we're at about 26 inches, so that's probably about what we'll get for pieces here. So what I'll probably do is just cut a little bit off, like right there, and that way, you know, it's tapered out a little bit, but otherwise it'll make a nice set of clean cuts for the rest of this piece of log here. Sometimes the hardest part about milling is just rigging up the log that you're about to mill for a number of reasons. So I decided to quickly grab a pressure treated 2x8 that I had sitting around. And if you watched the last sawmill video, you might have caught that I damaged one of these brackets. So in the meantime, I had called Woodmizer, ordered a few parts, and got a few more of these. So I put one of these in here, rigged up the 2x8. And thankfully I had this little contraption here that I set up when I was chainsaw milling, and that's coming in handy because there's too wide of a gap down in here, too wide of a gap right here when you're milling, and so the log probably was just gonna fall through. And then I decided to take advantage of the one clamp that's on this side of the mill, and it's just this hand clamp right here, and I was able to just barely rotate it back and tighten it here. So right now, this actually feels pretty solid. And in talking through this, I am now realizing that I actually want to rotate this 90 degrees this way because I wanted that side to be at the top. If I go across this way, I'm actually going to be losing a little bit of depth due to that angle there. And I'd rather have that just be on the bottom of the log here when I'm milling. So I'm going to try to get it like this. As much work it is to fix it, it's a must-have. So we're going to try to fix that. And I just realized one thing that's a little unfortunate is you can see that this carriage is not gonna move because of this one piece right there. It's just gonna keep bumping that. But that's bound to happen when you're experimenting with different techniques. So I'm just going to modify that and try again. Well, after all that experimentation here, I decided to just take two 2x8s and kind of make like a cradle here for that to rest in. The back is pushing up against the backstops, so that's good. And then the front here is actually, it's pretty close to being kind of held in by this. I kind of want it so it's just like in place there, so that's good. All right, well, now that the log is all rigged up, you can see that it looks like it's gonna fit nicely between the edges of the carriage here. And I just gotta put a little bit of water in here, a little bit of gas in here, and then we're gonna get milling. All right, so yesterday was becoming a little bit of a cluster. The rain was coming down. It was a little hard to do anything. I was getting mud over my gloves and they were wet, and then the sun was going down, so it just wasn't the best time to finish milling. But I'm out here this morning, the sun is coming out, the weather's really not so bad. It's a nice day out, so I think I'm gonna get to milling, and then in 24 hours, I'm going to be using the snowblower, so it's going to be a crazy 24 hours here. But I'm excited to get to milling. Let's try to finish up the Black Walnut right now and take a look at what that looks like. So let's give it a shot. So this is probably the first log that I've done that's under 3 feet, we'll say. And typically I don't do smaller logs because without the weight, they just shift around. And so this one, in my opinion, is just big enough to put on the mill here. And the tricky thing though is you can see that it was falling down in between here. And I was trying to figure out what the best way to rig this up was. And I kind of decided on just using 2x4s here to create kind of like a cradle so that the rounded part on the bottom could just kind of like sink into that. And the 2x8 that I had over on this side was actually pushing the log this way by, we'll say, just like a ½ an inch, to the point where it would not fit through the carriage there. So I had to swap out the 2x8 for a 2x4 on that side. And what I'm gonna do before I start milling here is I'm gonna go ahead, lift the log up with the tractor, then I'm gonna put that 2x4 down horizontally so that the log can kind of rest on that. And then on this other side facing me, I've got another 2x8, and I think that should be fine. So hopefully I can get this right. right, so I think the blade has dulled out, and this black walnut is very hard, and when you can just go ahead and, you know, do this with your finger and you're not even getting scratched, it's a good sign that the blade needs to be sharpened. Well, that's not really how you want to do it, but that's why we wear gloves. It should be a little easier to clean all the mud out here. So the blade's off again, and that's because it got stuck in the log. I think that there might be something in there that was catching it. Hopefully not a piece of metal, but it might be. So one thing that I probably should be doing is using a metal detector when I am cutting through logs here, and this got hung up real good on something in there, and it's really hard to say what that is, but I think what I'm going to do is put the blade back on and give it another shot. All right, so I just took a quick break to eat a double cheeseburger, and now I'm back out here. And I was having some issues cutting through this piece. It just wouldn't budge, and I thought it was the wood, but after I looked at it a bit, I'm pretty sure that it's one of these wheels. This carriage is on wheels, and it's definitely just getting hung up on something. So I'm gonna figure out what the issue is and then get back to milling. And I figured it out. And it was coming from the left side here, and when I was pushing it, it was stopping, and I kept thinking it was a wheel. Maybe the wheel was just slightly off. And it turns out that one of these nuts fell off here, and that's causing this to kind of get pushed in and then just completely prevent it from moving. So that set me back quite a bit. So now I'm just gonna try to get this block here finished for today and wrap up. So let's give it a shot. All right, so even though it's gonna snow in a couple hours, it's actually just barely warm enough that I can wash these down with a hose right now and show you what they look like. So why don't we do the fun part now, and then we'll wrap up the video. All right guys, well that was a lot of work and I'm glad it's done. And we'll find out if the wood is worth the effort once it dries, whenever that is. But for now, I just wanted to say thanks for watching all the way up to this point in the video. And if you liked the video, could you please just tap the like button? And if you haven't already, tap subscribe as well. And I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching. One day later, well, it's about 12 hours later, and we did it. We have a pile of black walnut covered in snow. All right guys, well that's gonna wrap up the video. So if you'll watch the whole thing, I do really appreciate it. And if you could go ahead, tap that like button, I'd appreciate that too. And while you're at it, hit subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.